We're told that being yourself is the key to a happy life. That in a world of fakes and filters, the bravest thing you can possibly do is show up, unapologetically, as you are. It's the final lesson in 1,000 movies. The core advice of every self-help guru, the sacred mantra of our time. Be authentic. But what if it's a trap? What if this noble mission, this relentless search for the real you, is the very thing making you miserable? Now, this isn't a pitch for being fake. Not at all. This is about how the quest for authenticity can lead to a profound and painful war with yourself. It's about the hidden dangers that lurk just beneath the surface of our favorite modern ideal. The danger of crushing loneliness, crippling anxiety, and a constant battle against your own complex nature. We've been sold a simple, romantic version of authenticity. But the truth is way more complicated, and honestly, far more dangerous. We're told to find our true self. But no one warns us what to do when that self gets rejected, misunderstood, or when it turns out to be something we don't even like. No one tells you that the price of radical authenticity can be the very connections you were hoping it would build. So, what's the real problem here? It isn't the desire to be genuine. The problem is the myth that you have only one, simple, easy-to-find self to be. The problem, the universal lie. The promise of authenticity is one of the most appealing ideas of our time. It whispers of a life where your inner world and your outer actions are in perfect harmony. A life free from the crushing weight of other people's expectations, free from the exhaustion of pretending. We imagine that if we just peel back the layers of social conditioning, fear, and compromise, we'll find this pure, perfect, true self just waiting to be set free. This idea has deep roots. You can hear it in the words of existentialist philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre, who argued we are condemned to be free, and to deny that freedom by just conforming is to live in bad faith. It was a cornerstone of the Romantic movement, which championed the wild, individual spirit over the cold machinery of society. And today, it's a billion-dollar industry. The message is everywhere. In a world that feels more and more artificial, authenticity is the last real thing we have, and there's a beautiful truth to it. Living a life that feels like a lie is a uniquely painful human experience. That feeling of being an imposter, of wearing a mask that's slowly growing into your skin, is a fast track to burnout and despair. We've all felt that little internal click of rightness when we do or say something that feels deeply, truly us. In those moments, we feel grounded, powerful, and whole. Authenticity promises to make that feeling permanent. It says that if you're just true to yourself, the right people will find you, the right doors will open, and you'll finally feel at home in your own life. But this is where the lie starts to creep in. We're sold authenticity as a destination, a thing to be found. The advice is to look inward, to discover who you are, as if your true self is some buried treasure just waiting to be dug up. The implication is that this self is a fixed, unchanging thing. Once you find it, the work is over. You just have to live by its rules. This creates a dangerous, false choice. You're either being authentic or you're being inauthentic. There's no in between. The mask is bad. The true face is good. Conforming is for cowards. Radical self-expression is for heroes. This simplistic view is the first and biggest danger, because it sets us up for a game we can never win. It completely ignores the complex, messy, and often contradictory reality of being a person. It gives us a faulty map for navigating our inner world and our social one. Life demands that we adapt, that we play different roles, that we manage our impulses, and that we sometimes put the group's needs ahead of our own unfiltered desires. The philosopher Nietzsche, who famously told us to become who you are, wasn't talking about a simple act of discovery. He was talking about a difficult, lifelong process of shaping and overcoming yourself. He knew this journey meant facing the abyss, the darker parts of our nature we'd much rather ignore. Our culture has taken this profound challenge and flattened it into a comforting but hollow slogan. The problem isn't the ideal itself, but how we've come to understand it. We've been taught to chase a ghost, a perfect, pure, singular self that doesn't exist. And this ghost hunt is leading us down a dangerous path, starting with the very real threat of being cut off from everyone around us, the agitation, the downward spiral. Once you buy into this modern cult of authenticity, the trouble usually starts with your relationships. It begins with a noble idea. I'm going to be more honest and real with people. You decide to stop people-pleasing. You commit to speaking your truth. You start practicing what's sometimes called radical honesty. The danger of the unfiltered self, a collision with reality. Imagine you try this out at the next family dinner. Your aunt, who you love but who has political views you find terrible, starts talking. The old you would have just changed the subject or nodded politely to keep the peace. But the new, authentic you feels a duty to speak up. You don't just disagree. You unleash your unfiltered truth, telling her exactly why her views are not just wrong, but harmful. Suddenly, the air is thick with tension. Your aunt is hurt, your parents are mortified, and the rest of the night is a masterclass in awkward silence. You might feel a quick flash of self-righteousness, but you've also broken a relationship and created a wound that might never fully heal. Or think about work. You decide your authentic self is sick of corporate buzzwords and pointless meetings. So you start saying exactly what you think. You tell your boss his new plan is a waste of time. You openly shred a colleague's work in a team meeting because you believe in brutal honesty. Even if you have a point, you're quickly labeled as difficult, negative, and not a team player. You get isolated, you're left out of projects, and your career hits a wall. You were authentic, sure, but you also made yourself an outcast. This is the first great danger, the naive idea that unfiltered honesty is always a good thing. It's not. It's often just a lack of social skill dressed up as a moral high ground. Society is held together by a delicate web of compromises, white lies, and things better left unsaid. We don't tell our friends their new haircut looks awful. We don't tell our partner their passion project seems kind of boring. This isn't being fake. It's being kind. It's recognizing that relationships are a constant dance between our own internal state and the feelings of others. Philosophers like Machiavelli got this. While he's often seen as a cynic, he knew that to get by in the world, you need a certain amount of performance and strategy. It's a dance between what's true and what's necessary. Plato's allegory of the cave gives us another warning. The prisoner who escapes, sees the light of truth, and comes back isn't welcomed as a hero. He's mocked and rejected by the people still comfortable in the shadows. When you believe you're holding some pure, authentic truth, you risk becoming that lonely figure, unable to connect with anyone. Your authenticity becomes a wall, not a bridge. It leads to a profound loneliness, a feeling of being alienated from both yourself and others. You might be true to yourself, but you end up being true to yourself alone. And the danger doesn't just come from the outside world rejecting you. An even trickier battle is about to start inside your own head. The danger of the true self. Myth. The war within. This brings us to the second danger. The war against your own nature. The constant pressure to find and live as your one true self creates a mountain of anxiety. What if you can't find it? What if you find it and you don't like what you see? What if it changes from one day to the next? The myth of a single static self is maybe the most damaging part of the whole modern authenticity trend. Humans aren't statues. We are complicated, contradictory, and always evolving. You're a different person with your parents than you are with your partner. You're a different person at work than you are with your best friends. Pop psychology might call these different versions of you masks, as if they're fake deviations from your authentic core. But what if they're not masks? What if they're all just you? What if you're a collection of selves, and each one is a valid part of your total being, suited for a different moment? The pressure to be just one thing is a recipe for endless self-doubt. You start policing your own thoughts and feelings. Is this really me? Or am I just trying to please someone? I feel so angry right now, but my authentic self is supposed to be peaceful. What's wrong with me? You become an interrogator in your own mind, hunting down any hint of inauthenticity. This creates a state of constant anxiety, a feeling that you're always failing at the one thing that should be easiest, just being yourself. This is where Carl Jung's idea of the shadow self becomes so important. Jung argued that from a young age, we learn that certain parts of us are unacceptable. Our anger, our envy, our laziness, our vulnerability. Any part that our family or society labels as bad gets shoved down into our unconscious. This collection of repressed stuff forms the shadow. It's not necessarily evil. It's just everything we've been taught to be ashamed of. The popular chase for authenticity is often just a desperate run from our own shadow. We invent an idealized, authentic self, calm, creative, kind, and declare war on everything inside us that doesn't fit that perfect picture. When you feel a surge of envy, you call it inauthentic. When you act out of fear, you shame yourself for not being brave enough. You're trying to live as only half a person. As Jung himself warned, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The harder you push the shadow down, the more powerful it gets. It starts to leak out sideways, in sudden bursts of rage, in seeing the flaws you hate in yourself and everyone around you, or in a constant low-grade depression you can't seem to shake. This internal war is exhausting, and you can't win it. You're fighting against your own wholeness, and this obsession with the self can slowly turn into a kind of narcissism. When being true to my feelings is the highest law, it can be used to justify selfishness and a refusal to grow. I'm not being rude, I'm just being honest. I can't commit to that, it doesn't feel authentic to me right now. And the ultimate shield, it's just who I am. That phrase becomes a way to dodge personal responsibility and the hard work of self-improvement. It tells you you're a finished product, not a work in progress. So, if the simple-minded quest for authenticity leads to isolation and an internal war, what's the alternative? Are we stuck choosing between being lonely purists or soulless fakes? There's a third path, a path that leads not to a simple, static self, but to a dynamic, integrated whole. The resolution, a new path to wholeness. If the road paved with "be yourself" leads to a cliff, we need a new map. The answer isn't to give up on authenticity, but to redefine it. It's time to trade the fragile, simple ideal we've been sold for a tougher, more mature, and ultimately more compassionate way of seeing yourself. Here's the fundamental shift. True authenticity is not about finding yourself. It is about consciously and courageously creating yourself. It's not a state you arrive at. It's a dynamic process of bringing all your pieces together. It's not about peeling off masks to find some pure, unchanging core. It's about realizing that you are the masks, you are the face underneath, and you are the conscious person who chooses which to wear and when. It's a move from the passive discovery of who you are to the active artistry of deciding who you want to become. This leads us to a new ideal, the integrated self. The integrated self is someone who has stopped fighting a war with themselves. It's someone who gets that they are not just the light, but also the shadow. Wholeness isn't about being perfect. It's about embracing all of it. The goal isn't to get rid of your dark side, but to bring it into the light of your awareness, understand what it needs, and use its energy for something good. What does this actually look like? It starts with radical self-compassion. Instead of judging your moments of inauthenticity, you get curious about them. Let's say you feel that pull to be a people pleaser at work. Instead of shaming yourself, I'm being so fake, you ask, what is this part of me trying to do? What is it scared of? Maybe you realize this people-pleasing part is actually a highly skilled diplomat self, whose job is to keep the team harmonious so you can all get things done. It's not a flaw. It's a tool. Now you can use it consciously instead of letting it drive you unconsciously. You can choose to be diplomatic without losing your integrity, or you feel a jab of envy over a friend's success. The old model would tell you to crush that feeling, to label it as ugly and inauthentic. The integration model asks, what is this envy telling me? What desire is it pointing to? Often, envy is just a warped kind of admiration. It's a signpost pointing directly at what you value and what you want for your own life. Once you see that, the toxic feeling of envy can be transformed into powerful fuel for your own ambition. This is what Jungian psychologists call shadow work. It's the process of turning toward the parts of yourself you've rejected. You acknowledge your anger, your fear, your pettiness, not as shameful flaws, but as lost parts of your own mind. You listen to what they have to say. By doing this, you reclaim the huge amount of energy you were wasting to keep them locked away. Your anger, once integrated, can become a powerful engine for setting boundaries and fighting for justice. Your fear can become prudence and wisdom. Think of it like an artist developing their style. They don't just find it one day. They study the masters, they copy, they experiment, they make a mess, they try on different approaches. Over time, through a process of practice and integration, all those influences blend into something new, something that is uniquely theirs. Yourself is the same. It is a work of art in progress, and you are the artist. Your so-called inauthentic moments are just experiments, drafts on the way to a more complex and interesting final piece. This leads to a smarter kind of authenticity, what some call critical authenticity. It's a self-awareness that doesn't just ask, is this true for me? But also, why is this true for me? Where did this feeling come from? Is it serving me? Is it hurting others? It understands that sometimes consciously choosing to adapt is a wise and strategic choice, not a moral failure. It's choosing to wear a mask not out of fear, but out of love, respect, or wisdom. The solution, then, isn't some 5-step guide. It's a single, profound, and life-changing shift in your mindset. Stop trying to be one thing. Start practicing being whole. Stop judging the parts of yourself you don't like. Start listening to them. This path isn't easier. In many ways, it's much harder than the simplistic pursuit of being yourself. It takes more courage, more honesty, and way more compassion. It requires you to hold the tension of your own contradictions. It asks you to be both the disciplined adult and the wild child, the saint and the sinner, the mask and the face. But this path leads to a place of real, resilient strength. It leads to a quiet confidence that doesn't need to shout, because it's rooted in self-acceptance, not in performance. We started this journey by questioning a piece of advice that has become as common as breathing. Be yourself. We saw how this simple phrase, when we misunderstand it, can become a hidden danger, a trap that leads to the loneliness of the unfiltered self and the anxiety of an endless war with our own nature. We've explored how the myth of a single, true self forces us to reject our own complexity and our own shadow, leaving us feeling broken and never good enough. But we've also found a new way forward, a path that redefines authenticity not as a fixed thing to be found, but as a dynamic process of creation and integration. It's a path that doesn't ask for perfection, but invites wholeness. It asks us to be curious about our masks instead of ashamed of them, to listen to our shadow instead of banishing it, and to treat building ourself as the great work of art that it is. The danger of living authentically isn't in being yourself. It's in believing you only have one self to be. The real journey, the braver journey, is to embrace the beautiful, messy, complex whole of who you are, and to consciously choose day by day the person you are becoming. It's about having the integrity to know your core values and the wisdom to know when to shout them from the rooftops and when to express them with quiet, diplomatic grace. True authenticity is not the revelation of a self that already exists. It is the masterpiece you build from the raw material of your entire being. This is a deep and often difficult process, and it's one we're all figuring out together. So, I'm genuinely curious to hear from you. What part of your so-called inauthentic self, the people pleaser, the angry part, the scared part, do you think deserves a little more compassion and curiosity? Let's start a real conversation about this in the comments. And if you want to explore more ideas like this, if you're interested in navigating the complexities of a meaningful life beyond the simple slogans, consider subscribing. There's so much more to uncover on this journey together. Leave with this thought. What if the real danger isn't losing yourself, but losing the delicate, life-giving balance between who you are and who you must and can become?